talks about what an urban water management plan is. And it's a really, really important document. It's a plan for the water resources for development in the valley over a 20-year period. And they update them every 5 years. So this was our 5-year update. And this is how planners decide whether there's an adequate water supply in our valley for all the development that's been going on. And of course, everybody's been saying, do we really have enough water if we're having to do all these cutbacks? Why are we building Newhall Ranch? Why are we building this and that, et cetera? And those are really, really good questions. For a long time, I've been pretty concerned that our valley is way overdeveloping to our water supplies and that we are planning to normal and wet years rather than drought years. And of course, the constriction, the limitation is going to be the drought year, as we all saw last year when we had to cut back 25%, 28%, and our lawns had to die and all the medians had to die. Well, so that's a picture of the Santa Clara River where they're going to build the Newhall Ranch project, and I just put that in there because Al is always saying there's no water in the river, but there is down there. Not so much up here, it's in the surface anyway, but just to give you a little hard time. Oh, I have to do it? Okay. Is it the red button?
No, the one facing to the right. To the right.
Oh, okay. Oh, good. Okay, so that's what I just said. It's the Urban Water Management Plan was originated in 1980 state legislation because they were worried that, there was that terrible 1977 drought, and they were really worried that planners and water agencies start working together to try to make sure there's enough water. So 5-year updates, we've just had ours, and I hope you all had an opportunity to participate. I know several of the people in this audience did, and it was a really wonderful thing because even if you just sat there and listened, it gave you a better idea of what's going on in our valley as far as water supply in the river. So this is the Castaic Lake Water Agency service area, and this is what the plan covers. It does not cover areas outside the Castaic Lake Water Agency area, although one of Scope's big oppositions to the Valencia Water Company acquisition, which the Valencia Water Company is in blue, and you can see how much of Newhall Ranch is not covered yet by the Valencia Water Company. Well, CLWA promised to serve all those areas, which amounts to about 30,000 units. Some of them are outside of their service area, like there's that little kind of mushroom thing in there. They are going to serve stuff in there, and they promised Stevenson Ranch Phase 5 water. They promised all kinds of stuff that wasn't really in their area. So that was kind of outrageous because how are they doing that when it's all of us that are paying for it, which is a question I asked during the urban water management planning process. But anyway, and so you can also see how CLWA, this is an interesting thing because, that sort of greenish area is the Santa Clarita Water Company that they illegally acquired in 2000. And I can say illegally acquired because the appellate court ruled for us, the taxpayers. And they said that even when they passed the state legislation to allow them to own it, they said that it is prospective. They were not undoing the court decision. So that acquisition was illegal, although they legalized it after the fact. So now you have Valencia Water Company in the blue that they've just also acquired in the same manner, and Newhall County Water District are the red areas, and that looks a little strange, but we are 3 separate systems, and we do serve all those areas. We have pumps and tanks in areas, but we run it all from our headquarters, which is down in the lower area, and it's done by SCADA, which is radio read system, and they can measure all the tank levels from the office and make sure everything is running okay. And then, so it's not an issue really to have the 3 different areas. And the reason we got that funny service area was because We are the first water company in the valley. This is a little aside, but I just want to give you a heads up on this as long as I'm here. We are the first water district in the valley, and we were formed in 1953, and we were formed as an voter-elected district. We have a 5-member board, and we are the only ones left like that are groundwater. So, and we've been here for 60 years, and some of our board members would like to make us go away without a public vote. They've been negotiating in secret for over a year with CLWA, and it would be perfect for CLWA because then all the then Newhall County's opposition to the illegal acquisition of Valencia Water Company would go away. And all that purchase agreement that promises Newhall land, all that water and all the recycled water they can use, even though some of us up in this area of the valley need it, that will stay. That will become law. So it's pretty important, in my view, not to have a merger. I've been a board member for 24 years. Every single election I have run on protecting and preserving the district, not becoming a water monopoly, not being taken over, and I have always been top vote getter in my election. So I think the public does understand this issue. It depends on how you phrase it, unfortunately, which they're kind of trying to do some. Anyway, that's a little aside, and I apologize for that. So, water resources. We have, probably you all know this, we have groundwater and imported water from Northern California. And our 2 groundwater basins are the Saugus Aquifer and the Santa Clara River alluvium. The Saugus Aquifer is a deeper aquifer that's, an aquifer is sandy water containing soils. And you can put your well down there and water will come out in between the sand grains and rock. And that's called an aquifer. Okay, so we have the Santa Clara River alluvium aquifer and we have the Saugus Aquifer. The Saugus Aquifer is this deeper folded aquifer that goes in a lot of the area of the valley. But we also have a huge water pollution in that problem in that aquifer from the Whitaker-Burmite site. And the Whitaker-Burmite pollution had spread off the facility. You know, they used to make ordinances for the war, and they started in 1942, and they didn't have such good rules about protecting the environment then. So they polluted a lot of the groundwater, and the pollution has spread way out into the valley and closed several wells. The furthest spread now is out to a well that's close to the transit center in Valencia, across from right around where the Hilton is. The Hyatt is, if you know that area, and that's where the bus transfer station is. There's a well there that's had to be closed. That's how far away the pollution has spread. And then the other place we get our water from is the Santa Clara River alluvium, which is mostly right under the Santa Clara River, and it's recharged by flows from the river and flows into the river and from the Saugus formation as well. And then we have imported water from Northern California, which comes down the state aqueduct. And you've probably already seen the state aqueduct, and you know it has to be pumped over the Tehachapi's. It uses a tremendous amount of electricity to get the water down here, massive amounts of pumps and lifts and things like that. So it's pretty expensive when it comes here. So if we would be able to use less imported water and more local resources, that would be great. But of course, we do have limitations on our local resources as well. So, okay, so here's the Saugus is the blue, and the Santa Clara River alluvial aquifer is the yellow part. And you can see how it goes a little bit further out. So that's why if you ever hear Scope complaining about building in floodplains and recharge areas, it's because the river and our water supply is not recharged if you concrete over all those areas. And but the water agencies sort of tend to ignore that. They never say anything about that in any land use hearings. And the other thing they don't do is realize that once you've paved over it, you're not going to get as much recharge. And we're starting to really feel those effects now, although they will try to deny that. And I didn't get all the charts in. Okay, so this says, let me get a little, oh, I should have my glasses on. projected normal year. So you can see that they have groundwater sources up there, and they have a pretty lot of water coming out of that aquifer. And one of the things that we objected to when they had this in the plan was that in reality, for instance, in the Saugus aquifer, they had an amount of pumping that not only have we never pumped, but we can't pump it now because our wells are closed down because of water pollution. And then in this last drought, you may remember, or you may not know this, but several Newhall County Water District wells were closed in the upper basin in this area because the alluvium is very thin up here. And so the water gets down below the wells where the wells can pump, and then they can't pump. But also Santa Clarita Water Company had that problem. Remember that Signal article about cloudy water? Do you all remember that? Well, that's because their wells broke air, which means they started pumping, they got the water level dropped below where their wells were pumping, so it pumped air into their wells, and everybody got cloudy water. Well, what does that mean? That means the water levels are pretty darn low. That means we can't get that much water out of our wells, as they're saying. So the Sierra Club and the Friends of the Santa Clara River really objected to that. Scope did too. Here's an example of what happens when you pump a river really hard, and they claim, oh, we're not doing this. But in fact, this may be exactly what happens. You see the blue underneath, this is from USGS Circular 1186. And it's about groundwater and the sustainability of groundwater. And it's written for the public. So if you ever want to know more about water, this is really a good thing to just look up on Google. USGS Circular 1186. So anyway, the top, so you see over there on the left, there's your aquifer, it's blue, and the stream is recharging it. And as you pump more and more out of the stream, it starts not recharging anymore. It starts, the stream flow itself starts coming from the sides. And then eventually, you no longer have contact with the groundwater. And that's where you really start to have trouble because you're not recharging your aquifer anymore at that point. And that may be where we are in some places. And a physical aspect of that is where a river will dry out and become really sandy in the middle. And people have said, as one other water district person said when I was complaining about this the other night, that, our river's been dry for a long time. But we never had, that sandy place in the middle is getting worse and worse. And the reason that that happens is that where the roots of the plants could originally reach groundwater, they no longer can, so they die out of the center. And it's pretty typical biological indication of overpumping. Okay, so then some of the people were worried and they said, well, what happens if we have a 4-year drought? So you'll see they have total groundwater 38,000. So that's counting 20,000 from the river and 15,000 from the Saugus Formation. Well, the problem is we can't get 15,000 from the Saugus Formation. Right now we can only get 7,000 because of so many closed wells. And they also did a report, which they all know about, that said that you can't get 20,000 out in a drought. It's more like 17,000. And, you know, we're talking about acre feet here. 1 acre foot is 325,000 gallons. It's enough water to cover a football field. It's an old farming term. But, so that's a lot of water. It looks, you say 20,000, maybe that doesn't sound like so much, but multiply it by 325,000 and gives you an idea of the gallons that you're talking about per year. So, so anyway, they also have backup sources, which is a darn good thing. However, they are in Kern County, and I know Mr. Dunn is always concerned that we're going to still be able to get them over the Tehachapi's if there's an earthquake. We are getting water from the Kern River, just the way the city of Los Angeles is getting water from the Mono Lake and got into so much trouble with it. I can't believe those people in Kern are going to let us dry up the river forever, but anyway, for right now, we are getting it. And then we have these storage projects, and they're kind of a good thing. I shouldn't say kind of a good, they are a good thing. It's an area where the aquifer can accept more water, so when there's excess state water, they can put it into those underground aquifers in Kern County, and then they can pump it back out when we need it. But we can only get a certain percentage out each year, so you see what the percentage is that we can get out. And in the past year, we had this second priority pumping, and so we were having trouble getting our water out. And now Castaic has spent $8 million putting in new wells into those facilities. So anyway, so that's a backup source, and that's a good thing to have, but you will notice that it didn't really get us through this last drought. We still had to cut back. And the reason we had to cut back is because if you look at state water supply where it says 5%, normally we get about 59,000 acre feet on average, but last year it got cut back to about 5%. So that's a huge amount of water. That's huge. And so at the same time that we have wells closed from water pollution in the Saugus Aquifer, we have a drought here for the lowest, our wells are at lowest level since 1991. And we had the state water project cut back to 5%, so we had a perfect storm. Now, my concern is if we have this perfect storm after we've doubled the housing in this valley, how in the world are we going to handle it? And they are trying to address that with storage, but the other way they're going to address it is they're going to do more conservation. We're going to be able to provide for all those people because we're going to conserve more. And I would just like to know exactly how it is that we're going to conserve so much more. We did a really great job in this last drought, but if we had doubled our population, we would have had to have done even a greater job. And I'm not quite sure how we would have gone much further than we did. I mean, people were amazing. You all were amazing to have saved so much water. It was a wonderful thing. I just don't think we should plan to have to save that much water. And so I guess that's, and if you'll see, this is what they tell the planners, basically, and they have plan and current supplies. And one of the issues is the future water planning. So they're going to pump this massive amount of water, supposedly from our groundwater. They had in the urban water management plan that they would double the highest production we have ever had from the Saugus Aquifer. They would have they would actually not double it, triple it. They would pump an additional 30,000 acre feet above the 15,000, which was the highest. They don't know they can even do that. They don't know what kind of water quality that is. They have no idea. And this is not even considering the ammonium perchlorate pollution that we have in our Saugus Aquifer. So this is what we have. This is what they approved. They said there will be plenty of water for doubling our population in Santa Clarita Valley. And if we have problems, we're all going to be cutting back more, and actually there's going to be planned conservation into the plan. So I want to just say that thank you so much to the many people that came and were involved in that, and I can see you all in the audience, and I would like to encourage you in the next planning period. I know water is complicated and it looks like a huge issue, but they really are pretty good at public outreach. They start slowly. If you want to come to the first couple meetings, they explain the water resources. And it gives you, of course, they're always telling you everything is fine, but you all have good minds. And I bet some of you are engineers or retired engineers. And you can see these numbers, and once you start to get a feel for them, you can ask a lot of good questions. I think The Sierra Club was, for instance, concerned that they don't have the pumping in from Newhall Ranch Agriculture, which is supposedly going to get transferred over to their housing development. If you add that in, it makes the pumping even more enormous than it is. And I think those are questions that are immediately understandable to people and that people can ask. And the more people that ask about this stuff and the more people that are concerned about the sustainability of our water resources, the better off we will all be in this valley. The more we talk about it, the more careful they will be. And I want to thank Al for letting me do this. And see, I think that's all. Yeah, that's all. So thank you, and thank everybody for participating.